Welcome to The Edge. I am joined by Carlton Saffa, who runs Saracen Casino Resort in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and also the Bet Saracen sports betting app statewide in Arkansas. Carlton, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks. It's not just me. It's an incredible team of about 800 folks here, including 3 executives. So, credit where credit's due. The team here deserves all the credit.
And I know you've got we'll talk about the big expansion project coming up, and that ties into a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Locally in Arkansas and nationally, you are doing something that is being watched closely. You're attempting to create a drawing, 50-50 drawing on your app. To the winner would get 50%, those who enter the drawing, and then a University of Arkansas Razorbacks in Northwest Arkansas, but also other universities throughout the state, football, basketball, baseball programs. You could do this for all these programs. Excuse me, they would get 50%. So it's a drawing, 50-50 drawing, NIL, name, image, likeness, which is needed by universities to recruit top athletes, especially University of Arkansas and the SEC. There's a lot of tough competition, and 50% goes to the winner. Now, in addition to that, you're attempting to couple that with iGaming, the iGaming component, which means you could go onto your phone as a user in Arkansas, play craps, slots, roulette. You're already capable of playing poker, although it's not turned on. So if you would, Carlton, take it from there. You're meeting resistance from an Arkansas casino, Oaklawn. They're pushing back. They say this would cut into the education lottery in the state. The governor's office has also said, can't do it. You've worked for a governor, and you know when a governor says no, that's a big brick wall. What's going on now with this effort, Carlton, and how do you get past opposition from Oaklawn, the historic racetrack, casino in Hot Springs, and the governor's office?
So a couple of things, Larry. First of all, I'm excited to visit with you. The last time we talked about player props. And I think that had an instrumental change in the way that narrative was handled amongst athletic departments and legislatures across the country. I think that's a testament to Gambling.com and you and your readership, your viewership. I am hopeful that folks will similarly listen to what we're talking about today. So a couple of things. Let's lay some groundwork here. We began in March to really have an open conversation about why we believed online gaming was important in Arkansas. I have traditionally used the term interactive gaming in discussing this. To the folks watching this, iGaming or online gaming may be more of their familiarity. The reason we've used the term interactive gaming in Arkansas is we already have a rule on the books, Rule 5. I realize I'm already in the weeds a little bit, but Rule 5 already allows poker statewide. And so I want to just, for folks who may be less familiar with how things work in Arkansas, we had a legacy of gambling here. And I have to give compliments to Oaklawn because they really are sort of the grandfather of this business, right? So you've got 100-plus-year-old business, Thoroughbred Racetrack, which was once a incredible hub of innovation. There's a man who was recently inducted into the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame who I have incredible respect for, Eric Jackson. Eric Jackson's really kind of the godfather of things that many of your viewers will know: historic horse racing, instant horse racing. We had electronic games of skill. All of these were incredible innovations that came out of Oaklawn. And then in 2018, the state of Arkansas passed a constitutional amendment which created casino gaming. And that's where we sit today. That's the reason the building I'm in exists. The Quapaw Nation invested about $500 million in this project, which again, we'll talk about in a minute. But one of the things that's important to understand is that in Arkansas, most of the gambling permissions come from Amendment 100. So you have Amendment 100 with its broad definition of casino gaming, and then you have promulgation authority for rules. And why am I talking about all of this? Because I want folks to understand the process by which we will go through legalization. So Larry, the first set of rules comes out in 2019, again, passes in 2018. The first rules are promulgated and approved through the Arkansas Administrative Procedures Act, which is a series of public comment hearings and votes and then ratification at the Arkansas Legislative Council. And from day one, we saw distinctions in Arkansas about geography. We had one game, poker, which is, while not house banked, a card game that you could play for real money, that the state said could happen anywhere within the four borders of Arkansas. The rest of the games, and for simplicity, let's call them slots, tables, and sports, only within the four walls of a casino. So right from the beginning, geographic distinctions are made by the commission by rule. 2022 comes along, and online sports betting is something in Arkansas accomplished by rule change, almost identical in scope and frankly in legal concept to what we're doing now. What did that do? Well, it did a whole lot of things. I mean, we had the KYC stuff, we had the geolocation components, all of the standard GLI 33 things everyone's familiar with. But really the core of it, Larry, was geography. Because what the commission said was, okay, so we've got poker in the four borders of the state, all the other games in the four walls of the casino. We're going to do sports also in the four borders of the state. What we are asking for now are games of chance, aka the rest of the authorized casino products, to be changed under the same precedent that we saw in 2022 with sports and first in 2019 with poker. So we've got two live precedents of rules promulgated through Arkansas's Administrative Procedures Act with the permissions of Amendment 100, which have made geographic scope changes. So really a fairly simple conversation in terms of how it's done. That process is a Racing Commission rule change, which is then ratified by the Arkansas Legislative Council. That is our proposal. Now, I want to be very clear. We have tremendous leadership in Arkansas. And I've said this on social media. I'll say it here. Getting involved in political support is not always a good idea in business. But I will say that I am a big supporter of Governor Sanders. I voted for her. I've supported her. I've supported her in every way that I can. And in instances that have nothing to do with casino gaming, we have tried to be supporters of Governor Sanders and will always be. I think her tax policy is right for the state. I think many things she's done have been right for the state. But in order for good leaders like Governor Sanders to make the right decisions, they need the right information. And what I am confident about is that this issue has not been fully vetted. Because had it been fully vetted from a legal basis, I think we will see a different position. And I think ultimately, when this gets this sort of conversation that we have been asking for, I think you may see something different. Now, let me talk very straight about what I just said. The governor's opposition to what we're proposing has been predicated on a fairly old statute. And this statute, this dusty old statute, is about charity raffles. And I'll get very granular here for a minute. We're talking about,
Carlton, before we talk about the NIL, pardon me, I'm going to ask you to go back to iGaming just a second before we talk about the NIL.
Sure. And you got to interrupt me, Larry, or I'll go on for an hour. And
No. I really appreciate how you're walking us through that, because I don't think a lot of people understand what's going on, and this does have national implications. As you know, only a half dozen or so states have iGaming, slots, table games. In a lot of cases, brick and mortar executives don't want. That's where a lot of the pushback is coming from in states. We want people inside our casino. It could erode live jobs inside the casino. You are one of the rare casino executives saying, you know what, we want online iGaming. You're building a $250 million hotel, event center, all those things that if you felt there was some fear that people wouldn't go there because they could play on their phone, you might not be doing. Why is there resistance? And in every state where there's sports betting and iGaming far outstrips the revenue of sports betting in most cases. Why are you a proponent of iGaming, and why is there so much resistance in the state to that?
So I want to push back on one thing you said, and that I'm one of the rare executives who believes that there is what you're talking about is cannibalization of bricks and mortar.
Right.
And I would push back a little bit that we are the rare one here. I actually would argue that in 2024, as we sit today, this issue having been studied exhaustively, that I think the pushback is becoming more rare. I think most people are more in our position. I'm a huge fan of Eilers, and what Eilers does in their research to me is it's the North Star. Eilers put out an incredible report on cannibalization of bricks and mortar. And in it, you saw quotes from as big a people as exist in gaming, right? I mean, Bill Hornbuckle, right there. Cannibalization is not real. CEO of Caesars, the same thing. CEO of Penn, CEO of Boyd, on and on and on. I mean, you've got the biggest people in the business saying cannibalization is not real. And we have made a $250 million bet here in Arkansas that cannibalization is not real. If we believed for one moment that online gaming would harm our business, we would not be on the 11th story of the hotel that we are building, a couple of 100 yards from where I sit. Right now, Larry, there's 400 or 500 tradesmen and women building a 1,600 seat concert hall and a 320 room hotel. And if we believe for one moment that this would harm our business going online, we wouldn't do it, period. And we have a real life bet. And you know what? I know we're not wrong, but this will be something people can study in real time, because when online gaming is live and when revenues at bricks and mortar don't disappear, we're going to be fine. A couple of things that are interesting about this too, by the way, my friends at Oaklawn, and I say that sincerely. I mean, Eric Jackson, I cannot say enough about what that man did for gaming in Arkansas. He saved Oaklawn when they were in a tight spot. But when Saracen opened, the amount of money that was being played in the central Arkansas micro market, and for those of y'all who are less familiar with Arkansas, there are 3 casinos. The folks at Southland, owned by an incredible company, Delaware North, based in Buffalo, New York. Their primary market is Memphis. They sit less than 10 minutes from downtown Memphis, one of the best locations in America for a casino. But besides our friends in West Memphis, it's Saracen and Oaklawn for the Little Rock market. And so what we've seen in what we call the Little Rock micro market is basically a doubling in the amount of revenue in casino gaming. I'm extraordinarily proud of that, because what we didn't do when we opened Saracen was just go eat off of Oaklawn's plate. In fact, they're doing about the same numbers they were doing before we opened, and we're doing our numbers, right? So we didn't cannibalize their numbers. But also, they've expressed deep concern about the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery. And to that end, I would say if you look at the data, when we doubled the amount of money that was being gambled in central Arkansas because we opened up, and I think we met a need that was not being met. I think the data shows that, right? The lottery didn't collapse. And so now to hear a casino who has historically been opposed to the lottery efforts object to online gaming on the basis of their concern for the lottery, it has me scratching my head, because the data doesn't add up.
Why couple, Carlton, the NIL effort, the drawing? You don't get anything out of that. Customer loyalty, brand recognition, the 50-50 lottery. Why couple that with the iGaming, the necessity to get iGaming approved? Why not just launch the NIL effort?
Great question. And let me walk you through the timeline again. I started out by talking about March, and you were the first with the story that we were pursuing this in March. I worked in politics for a long time, like you said, and I don't believe in cloak and dagger stuff. I don't believe in ambushing people or cloak and dagger. And we have been very thoughtful about being transparent, to the point where we have entered things into the record that frankly might not have even need to be entered into the record. I mean, I guess you could say we've left a breadcrumb trail on purpose so no one could ever say, oh, this just suddenly popped up, or wow, this is some kind of weird Trojan horse. In March, we began this conversation and entered documents into the public record, which were accessible through the Freedom of Information Act, and many people did. It's been an open conversation we've been seeking to have with stakeholders for some time, since March, right? We were approached in late June, early July by the folks in Northwest Arkansas who run the NIL collective there. And the ask was basically this: hey, y'all are working on something that would legalize games of chance on the phone. And I say games of chance because realistically, that's what we're talking about, right? We have sports on the phone, we have poker on the phone, and we're looking to put slots and tables on the phone. So games of chance for simplification, right? If you can get games of chance on the phone, would you run 50-50 drawings benefiting our NIL collective?
Now, let me interrupt for one sec. just for people who don't geographically know, when you say Northwest Arkansas, you're
I'm talking about the Hogs.
yeah, behind the football, behind you, the SEC, Arkansas Razorbacks, plus Northwest Arkansas, for those who are unfamiliar with the geography, is the home of a global home of Walmart, global home of Tyson Foods, very dynamic business community. And that's what you mean when you say Northwest Arkansas guy.
No, you're right. And if we want to be very specific, that NIL collective is run by the family that began JB Hunt, who I know your listeners are probably very familiar with. Look, I'm a proud Arkansan, and we are home to some tremendous publicly traded companies and some enormously wealthy families. And NIL has been funded almost entirely on their backs. And so they looked for a way for us to supplement philanthropic donations with lots of zeros in the form of maybe some folks, giving at the $100 level or the $50 level. Everybody knows how the 50-50 process works. Half the money goes to a cause, half the money goes to a winner. And so we were able, with our technology partners at Amelco, who I cannot say enough good things about, to develop a product that would allow this 50-50 NIL drawing to occur. But Larry, to your question, we have to have games of chance legalized on the phone before we can have 50-50 drawings legal on the phone. And the conversation went in this order. We want online gaming, and I can give you a million reasons why it is so important, and I hope we can talk about them, about sweepstakes, about unregulated, unlicensed, untaxed gaming, about the American Gaming Association report we saw this week. My estimates based upon that, they said $500 billion in handle in illegal online and other forms of play. We think it's something like $5 billion in illegal handle in Arkansas, right?
You want to kick the illegal guys out.
That's it, right? I mean, and that was at the core of our argument. Most people and most states who look to iGaming do it because they need the money, and there is a deficit at a state level. Arkansas is running surpluses. Our state is enormously well run by Governor Sanders, and the state of Arkansas is in a tremendous fiscal position. So we, unlike many other jurisdictions, wouldn't do this because we needed the money. The fact that it would throw off, at maturity, we think something like $90 to $100 million in new tax money is great. And it's not for us to decide where that money goes. Should the governor want to use that for additional tax cuts? Great. Maybe there are other avenues that might make sense for it. Great. My biggest concern is that there is a juggernaut here already. And because they are in the gray market, I consider them to be completely illegal, but I'm being charitable. In the gray market, the sweepstakes operators have swarmed our state with advertising. I can't get on my telephone without seeing ads for VGW's products, whether it's, a Ryan Seacrest piece or, any of the others. I mean, I've got here on the second screen, Chumba, Lucky Land, Pulse, Fliff. And I mean, they go on and on and on. Your folks know them all as well. It's better. It's stake. They never stop. These sweepstakes casinos operate in the app stores without any real controls or regulation. They have no license from the state of Arkansas. They pay no gaming taxes. They have no real components involving responsible gaming. They don't do what Saracen does and go to the Arkansas Problem Gambling Council convention with sponsorship and make ourselves available. They're good at what they do, and they're running a hell of a business, but they're exploiting, this is me being charitable, exploiting a loophole in the Federal Trade Commission's laws to operate. I'll tell you what a legislator said to me, one of the most conservative legislators in the state of Arkansas. They said, I don't know that I'm a fan of people gambling on their phones, but this is not a question of whether or not we're going to have online gaming. We already have online gaming. We've had horse racing on your phone since 2014. In 2014, I still had a BlackBerry. In 2014, the world was different, but we've had horse racing on our phone since 2014. We've had sports on the phone since 2022. And what this legislator said to me, she said, I would rather that you do it than someone who is offshore with servers in Malta and money in China and a headquarter in Australia or wherever. We've also seen that it's almost impossible to shut down bad actors. The only person who's done it right has been Michigan. And I want to talk about that. But I also want to say we have a real world example in Arkansas about how you can send a nasty letter from an important person to one of these bad actors and nothing happens. Quick story. A couple of months ago, under the tremendous leadership of Secretary Hudson of the Department of Finance and Administration in Arkansas, a fellow named Trent Minner, who is one of his regulatory folks, sent a letter to Prize Picks and Underdog Fantasy. And the letter essentially said, you are offering player prop wagers. You are a daily fantasy sports operator. We believe these offerings violate the parameters of what you're allowed to do. Underdog said, okay, we'll take them down. Prize Picks said, nope, sorry. Now, Prize Picks is in Georgia, not Georgia like in Europe, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, right? So if we can't stop a bad actor in Atlanta, what are the odds that we can stop a bad actor that's offshore and overseas? Basically zero. So what Michigan did and what we propose to do is very simple. And that is a dual track solution, which is authorize Arkansas casinos to do this and continue your law enforcement efforts. And we saw in Michigan that it worked. And Michigan is one of the most amazing success stories I've seen in terms of regulation in gaming. Because what VGW did in Michigan was they not only left, but they left with a press release. They told their players, you have 90 days to get your money out. And I know this sounds a bit dramatic, but it would be as if the cartel were to put out a press release that says, hey, we're not shipping fentanyl into Arkansas anymore. 90 days from now, we're out. Look, you've got reports from folks like Howard Glazier, who I respect tremendously at Light and Wonder, a comment he made at the National Conference of Legislators from Gaming States about how these sweepstakes casinos are linked to money laundering, organized crime, and even terrorism, right? You have others saying these are available on everyone's couch in America today. And my position is just do what Michigan did. We can displace the bad actors and allow licensed, legitimate casinos to take their place. Because there is online gaming in Arkansas today. There are no consumer protections. There are no assurances that children aren't engaged in it. If it's us or them, I think an Arkansas company ought to be in this space. It would be very different if this was not occurring with offshores today already. But Michigan did it right. And we've seen that the tools we have at our hands right now are not enough because we can't stop a company in the state of Georgia, let alone somebody who might be in the country of Georgia or Malta or Australia or China or the like.
Two questions, Carlton. One of the criticisms that's been leveled about the dual plan, iGaming and the NIL sweepstakes, the drawing, is you have used the NIL drawing as a backdoor way to kind of sugarcoat your effort to get iGaming on in the state. What's your response to that?
Well, the timeline doesn't match up. And so, you can look to Senator Hester. Bart Hester is the president of the Arkansas State Senate, himself a former student athlete. And you can look to his comments in our statewide newspaper, the Democrat Gazette. The timeline just doesn't add up. And Bart himself says, he was the connection point between the folks in Northwest Arkansas and Saracen. Remember back to what I said a minute ago, when the call was made, can we put 50-50 on these games of chance that you all are in the process of legalizing? That was June or July. If we had intended to do NIL as this Trojan horse to get this done, we would have come out with NIL from day one. I've often said this because I've done a lot of press on this, Larry, although you're, I think, my favorite to talk to because you've got Arkansas roots and I like talking to folks that are our people. But this train that we began moving down the tracks about displacing the bad actors, that train has been moving since March, and we've been on the record since March. This NIL component came in only in late June, early July, and I view that as the caboose that was put on the back of this train. Now, for some people, that caboose is driving the train because, look, it's only common sense. In a football-crazed state like Arkansas, a week before the first game, NIL and football are on everybody's minds. But my message to anyone who may be watching this is if the only reason you would do online gaming is for the NIL, you are missing the point, and we probably ought not do it. If folks are not listening to the seriousness with which the sweepstakes casinos are coming and the threat they represent to our businesses, you're missing the point. The NIL is the cherry on top. It's the spoonful of sugar. It's whatever cliche you want to add. The fact that we can help every athletic program in the state of Arkansas makes it a win-win. But at the core of this is the existential threat of unregulated, untaxed, illegal casinos operating wide open. And what we have seen is, despite the best efforts of incredible leadership, including the Attorney General, it's very difficult to stop bad actors on the internet. That's a bit of a truism. Everyone knows that. But we saw in Michigan that this process of legalizing it for the good guys and continuing to put heat on the bad guys, if you do that, the bad guys wave the surrender flag and leave themselves. And I believe this will be a model you will see other states pursue. Final thought on this. These guys are not small businesses, these sweepstakes operators. Eilers said that this was a $3 billion revenue business in just the first quarter of this year. And you're seeing double-digit growth quarter over quarter. I believe that you pull weeds when they're small. And these weeds need to be pulled out of the yard here in Arkansas. And every day that we wait, they will grow stronger and develop more customers and continue to rip people off in Arkansas without consumer protections. The time to act is now, and we have a plan that has proof of concept in Michigan that will make it work. And the fact that we can help the hogs is just a plus. It's gotten a ton of attention, but it's just a plus.
Before we close, and thank you, Carlton, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Before we close, though, let's get to the nub. You are meeting resistance from a fellow casino operator, Oaklawn, historical, as you note, operator in Arkansas, dating back a century, the horse track, a prelude race, the Arkansas Derby to the Kentucky Derby.
It's incredible. Our family has a place in Hot Springs. I love the horse races, and they run one of the best tracks in America.
And they have a lot of political influence, and the governor and the administration have said no. How do you at the end of the day, how do you move past those big roadblocks, and what's the next step?
So it goes back to what I said earlier, that we have great leaders who need the right information to make their decisions. And so to date, the objection has been predicated upon this charity raffle provision, right? So we have these charitable raffle laws for the Elks Lodge and the Knights of Columbus and Ducks Unlimited and the like that talk about raffles. So the rule that we have proposed does not include the word raffle. We're talking about casino permissions, and drawings are at the core of every casino I've ever known. We have a Lexus in the lobby we'll be giving away at the end of the month. My friends in Hot Springs gave away a jet ski last month. We do drawings as casinos. So look, the charitable raffle statutes, first of all, predate the Arkansas constitutional amendment for casinos. Second of all, Amendment 100, Section 10, speaks specifically to nullifying anything which is in conflict with the amendment. And third, I think it's a bad argument to hang opposition to online gaming and helping NIL on an inapplicable charity raffle statute. Saracen is not a charity, and this is not a raffle. But even if it were a raffle by rule, right, we could have it either way. We could write it as a raffle in the rule. Those are inapplicable statutes because they speak only to the limited scope of charities operating under $100 permit on we're doing a charity event tonight. I saw today Saratoga is doing a charity event for the Special Olympics. These sorts of charity events are limited in scope. What we're talking about are casino games authorized by Amendment 100 under the broader definition of gaming, and the same sort of thing that we're doing on the floor here and Oaklawn's doing on the floor every month with car giveaway, just expanding the geography of a drawing from the four walls of a casino to the four borders of the state. So I think the argument that this is based upon is not sound. And I believe that with a more public and robust conversation, we will get there. But I think right now they're not hanging their hats on good legal advice.
So as that conversation continues publicly, and as you continue to work with the governor's office and others to win that support with the education you're talking about, will you go before the Racing Commission? For those outside of Arkansas, the Racing Commission is the regulatory body, like a gaming commission in another state. Will you go before the Arkansas Racing Commission to seek approval, or will you go legislatively when the legislature comes back to Little Rock to seek approval at the legislature? Will you try another method to get this on via the Racing Commission, via the legislature?
I am passionate about the fact that we have serious obligations as a casino to do three things. And I believe every casino in America has this obligation. Reagan had his three-legged stool. Here's our version of a three-legged stool for casinos. We need to employ a whole lot of people and take care of them well. We need to pay a whole bunch of money in gaming taxes, and we need to keep the money in our state's economy. The third leg of the stool, that keep the money in our state's economy, is very much at risk. Previously, we talked about the money going to Mississippi or Missouri or Oklahoma or Louisiana. Now I'm talking about the money going to China. That money leaves the state, it's unlikely to ever come back. The money leaves the country, we can ensure it never comes back. So we will not stop talking about this imminent threat from offshore illegal operators. My desire has been and will always be, first, to have this conversation with the Arkansas Racing Commission. I will never, ever try to force anyone's hand because it's a fool's errand to do so. But what we would like to have is a conversation about this, whether it's a formal conversation regarding Rule 5 or get everybody in a room. But to date, Oakland has been hesitant to even get in a room. You have local media who are offering to host, representatives from our two casinos to discuss this topic. And our friends at Oakland do not even want to discuss it. We have been an open book and are ready to talk about it.
Well, let me say, Carlton, I will reach out to them. If I can get them to agree to come on with you, let's do it.
I'm game. I mean, the middle of the night, if I'm on an airplane, if I'm in the car, I'll cancel anything for this conversation. I realize that sounds desperate. It's not. It's that this is a serious issue that some folks hope are just going to go away. The illegal offshore casinos are not just going to go away. And Saracen's concern about their imminent threat to all of our businesses in Arkansas is not going to go away. And I will say this, I think we speak with some credibility from Saracen, despite only being 5 years old. We are the dominant casino in the online sportsbook space. We did 3 times the handle just last month of Oaklawn in the online space. And I'm not trying to make this about us versus them, but I do believe we speak with significant credibility on the subject of online gambling. And I think you can look at our numbers to back it up. So my hope would be a friendly conversation about what we are concerned about, and their response equally friendly, and we can have that conversation. I would prefer to not have this conversation on Twitter or have this conversation with people issuing statements in the newspaper, antagonistically against each other. That's not the way I like doing business. But there are folks in this state that hope this would just go away. And so we had to take the conversation public, and we use social media to do it. Should this not be an issue that appears before the Racing Commission, we would consider all additional options. I have been approached by a number of state legislators offering to run legislation to authorize this. We have always preferred in Arkansas to operate casino gaming through Amendment 100 and the rule promulgation authority it affords, because the rules process, which the legislature still has control over, provides for additional flexibility. You can move much more quickly with rules. With statutes, you have to wait until the legislature is in session. So oftentimes you recognize a problem and it's 2 years before you can address it. But when I have legislators coming to me saying, I want to run a bill, I want to jump on this, we need to get this done, it says to me that there is big time support for what we are doing. And it also says to me, I understand why Oakland's trying to keep it bottled up.
And you'll still need a signature from the governor if it passes the legislature, or a veto override. So you still have some politicking potentially to do. Needless to say, before the Arkansas Pine Bluff game, I think it's on the 29th, the Razorbacks and the Golden Lions play on the 29th. Football season kicks off. No NIL effort, at least before then. So You still working on it. Carlton, I really appreciate you coming on today, walking us through all this. Bottom line is still some ways to go in building political support and support potentially from another casino in the state that right now is throwing up a roadblock. Is that a fair assessment?
That's fair. Two quick points in closing. One, our product is ready. Our 50/50 product is ready. And had it not been for some of these speed bumps put in place by our friends in Hot Springs, we would have NIL 50/50 drawings live at the first game next week. Our product is ready. Secondly, I believe the message that we are conveying, which is essentially kick China out, protect Arkansas children, provide assurances that adults are gambling, not children. I think that's consistent with the messaging that we've seen come from our incredible governor, Governor Sanders, and from the Attorney General. They have made kick China out a cornerstone of what they're doing. And you can look no further than the Philippines, who made huge headlines not too long ago when they identified direct connection between these online casinos and organized crime directly linked to China. So the message from the governor and the attorney general about kick China out is completely consistent with what we're trying to do under this Michigan model. Again, there is much to discuss. And as much as I love them, my friends in Hot Springs want to keep all of this bottled up because the facts are simply not on their side.
Carlton Saffa, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, buddy.
I really do appreciate it. I'm Larry Henry at Gambling.com, and thank you for joining us on The Edge.